Hello, time for another midweek chat. Beautiful day. It got colder, so 20 degrees warmer yesterday at this time, I think, or more. So I think it's about 54 degrees right now, but it's October 23rd. So what can you say? That's nice. I'm down at the can't tell where I am because of that bridge. Maybe it's the Rainbow Bridge, which I hope Pablo or whoever, must be hard to fix things that are unusual, but it's such a beautiful changing color bridge. I think I did a chat there once at dusk when it was lit up, but that takes you over to the Pablo Center, and you got the confluence, right? I'm looking at where the Eau Claire River meets the Chippewa River coming down. So there's some nice trees here, and the sun was out, keeping me a little bit warm. So anyway, I got some parish news. I got some other news. Let's just rattle off some parish news quick. So trunk or treat, right? You see different churches do that. We were doing that really early. Not that it's a competition. I hope people have fun wherever they do it. But this Saturday from 2 to 4, trunk or treat. People show up and they open their trunk and they decorate it. And parishioners have been donating candy. And, I think you can still do that if you want. But man, is it already this? It's already this Saturday, so time is just whipping by, isn't it? Halloween, of course, isn't until a week from tomorrow, but there's more excitement about Halloween before it than after it, right? So we'll do it the Saturday before. So thanks, Beth and Kelly, for organizing that. I'm going to try to do my candy fast again for Halloween, man. Boy, if there's not some limits for me anyway, that I'm kind of an addictive eater, I guess. It's a tough time of year because you can get all the Reese's and all that stuff for Halloween, so that bloats you up. And then, Thanksgiving's right around the corner, right? So that's like, and then of course, I don't know what I'm gonna do with Christmas season as far as eating. Maybe not have empty calories on even days of December. I think that would work. So not on the 2nd, 4th, 6th, 8th, and hopefully not eat twice as much on the odd days. I don't know, but it just can get to be too much. But man, some things really taste good, don't they? I was at the food co-op in La Crosse, and I got Breck some snack bars. This beautiful chocolate-covered oat, wheat germ, peanut butter, coconut, sunflower seed bars. They're just so good. I got some of those. I shared them with staff, so that's good. That's one way to eat less, is share what you got, right? Plus, I like them. They're good to share with. They do a good job. Let's see. End of month. It just says end of month. Oh, so our monthly thing. So the baby bottles for apple pregnancy. That was like an October project. If you took one and you're going to fill it with change or a check or not baby formula. We don't. It's a container for donations. So that'd be good. You could bring that back. Bring it back before the end of the month because we'll cash it out and give a check to the pregnancy center. Blood drive. So this Monday, usually we come through. We'll see. So it's just 5 days away, and there's 29 slots left to be filled for anybody who's up for donating a pint of blood. Okay, so that'd be good. This isn't parish news, but I just want to point out my hoodie before I forget. So number one, I voted today, so that was good. Exercised my right to conscience and my right to vote. Can you see that? It says I voted. Just down over there. I did it at the drive-thru. I won't be here on Tuesday, November 5th. So got her done. Yeah. That's what, in the end, that's what we have to do. We try to inform our conscience and then vote our conscience. Lots of issues. Integrity, leadership. Catholic tradition, of course, is very concerned about life and protecting human life, the great dignity of it, made in the image of God from the moment of conception, but not, ending at birth, but then going forward too, all the ways that human dignity is threatened in the world, and trying to protect that, which was really great. We had a speaker last night. You know, so I don't know what to do. I can't advertise Stephanie SSaldaña anymore because she was here last night. And why don't I finish Parish news? I just have one more couple. Oh, I was going to show you my hoodie. Well, okay. So Beth has this brainstorm. She likes to do things to help our community, and so it's like we got trivia nights. We're gonna have trivia nights in the winter. So in December and January and February. So if you're a calendar marker, I can give you the dates. It's December 14th, January 25th, and February 22nd. So that'll be like trivia night. I'm not sure what they'll be like, but you know, Beth's doing it. It'll be fun, right? That's a given. And then on January 11th, it'll be Italian dinner night. So yeah, that's another Beth thing, and her family. That's great. So, you know, homemade pasta and all the works. So there'll be a limited number of tickets available for that, and it'll be in-house, not takeout. But that'll be January 11th. Okay, so a few things to look forward to there. So in this hoodie, I love this hoodie. It's my favorite, one of my favorite pieces of clothing because it's such a great hoodie. Nope. So when I was on a sabbatical, when I was living just outside Bethlehem in Jerusalem, we had to go, it was just awful. We had to go to Mount Sinai for a visit, and it was, of course, a beautiful opportunity, and which was in Egypt. And when I left, I didn't take any really jackets with me. And then I said, well, you know, Mount Sinai is in the desert. It gets cold at night. We're going to be hiking. To get to the top of Mount Sinai at sunset, everybody leaves at like 2 in the morning. So we're walking at 2 in the morning. It was actually a full moon that night. What a memorable, beautiful night. Some people rode camels halfway, but either way, you had to walk the last kind of craggy mountain trail. And along the way, there's like these little Bedouin tents that had tea, and maybe they had some snacks, maybe a Coke. It was nice. But anyway, I needed something a little warm. And so I asked the people at Tantur where I was living, I said, where can I get a jacket in Bethlehem? You got a recommendation? They said, yeah, go to this place. It's on Manger Street. And it's a little pricey, but it's good stuff. I'm like, oh, okay, the pricey didn't sound like great. And I go through the checkpoint, and I get out, and there's all these taxi cabs. It's always a market, right? But I've never seen these for sale. They have food, shoes, purses. It's just a wild market, all kinds of stuff. And, you know, people are not wealthy, so the prices are not, you know, steep. And maybe the goods aren't that high as the quality. Anyway, so I'm walking, I'm going to head toward this place on Manger Street, and I see a little turnstile with hoodies. I'm like, oh man, hoodies. Well, they have one in my size. You know, I'm kind of average size here. I was kind of a little bit maybe bigger than the average person that was living in Bethlehem. But heck, they had this. I think I'd probably take an extra large hoodie, but this was just a large. But I thought, I'll try it on. Fits like a glove. Isn't that just great? I'm afraid to wash it because I don't want it to shrink. So it's got a few stains. But then I said to the guy, I said, so how much for this? And he goes, 80. And I'm like, oh, 80 bucks. And I said, $80? And he heard me. And I think he saw an opportunity, but he was also a good guy. He said, yeah, dollars. Because it wasn't dollars, it was shekels, which meant that it was like $16 or 20, you know, it was maybe he said $70. Anyway, it was about, I think I paid $15 or $17 for this. And so we kind of had a laugh, and I gave him 80 shekels or something. Anyway, so this is what I wore to Mount Sinai, and I'm wearing it today. And I brought it out because it's this time of year, it's getting colder, but also because Stephanie came. So last night, Stephanie SSaldaña presented to over 100 people that gathered. It's available on YouTube, so in case I forget to say that. It was just a wonderful evening. For me, it was one of the highlights of my time at St. James, honestly. And obviously I'm invested. This was someone that I met during my sabbatical 5 years ago. She's the wife of my sabbatical director. And she was doing research for this book when I was living in that same complex where they lived. And I guess I wrote a lot of this in the bulletin, but I always knew she was doing this fascinating stuff, like interviewing refugees and traveling to Iraq and Syria, Greece. And I'd always try to to talk to her. I'd like to kind of sit near her at dinner so I could hear a little bit what was going on. And then she was gone, and then she came back, but we went to Egypt. So I was just always missing her. And then like the last week I was there, I was just sort of getting my food, and she was sitting alone. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is my chance. And I go up to her, and she goes, oh, hi, Tom. I go, hi, Stephanie. I'm so glad I want to hear about it. She goes, oh, yeah, I'd love to tell you about it. I sat down, took a couple bites. She started telling me about her last trip to Iraq. And then her 4-year-old daughter came, Mama, I need you. And she's like, oh, Tom, I'm sorry, I got to go. And I was like, oh. So, but yesterday I got to pick her up at St. Paul, and it was just her and me in a car for like an hour and a half. Then we went out and had some pizza, and so what a treat. And then this morning, she said she gets up early. Someone is going to pick her up to take her to the airport, but she didn't have to leave till like 8:15. So we went out to the Silly Serrano for a little breakfast, which was delicious. She said, I didn't think, I was here a month, and she likes Mexican food, so she had mentioned, I didn't think that after being in the U.S. for a month on this book tour, 3 weeks, that my best Mexican food would be in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, because she was in Texas, she was in California, so anyway, I have to pass that on to Juan and Sheila. So it's available on our YouTube channel. I think overall, I don't know if she said this or I think she must have said it. It's just that we all belong to one another. That we all belong to one another. So she interviewed the refugees. She heard their stories. She was curious what people took with them when they left. For a lot of them, they didn't take anything. The main thing they would take was their phones. And because their phones, nowadays their phones have all our pictures on them. They have to be able to communicate with people back home. A lot of refugees are poor, she said, but not all refugees are poor. All refugees are desperate. But some of them have... Then I wondered about it in a refugee camp in Greece that was so terrible. How could they recharge their phones? And she said, it was actually at charities that would come in with these charging stations, and they would I forget what charity she said did that, but anyway, just lots of stories and slides, and her book that some people in the parish read didn't have any photos in it, so she brought photos and showed slideshows of these two great friends who formed a band and took their instruments from Kurdistan with them, or they found how to buy some in Turkey, and when they found refuge somewhere else. And people that this beautiful dress that we heard about that someone sewed, there was a picture of that all of a sudden. It's just beautiful to see. And I think it was really timely for us, because we have a refugee welcoming team that will be called, could be today, could be next month, but I think we're next to get a refugee family that'll be coming to Eau Claire, sponsored by World Relief. I think I've mentioned there's 3 of these. As I heard the talk, there's 3 agencies, social service agencies that welcome or help acclimate refugees into the United States that are contracted with the government. And one is Catholic Charities USA, and one is Lutheran Social Services, and one is World Relief, so a Catholic, a Lutheran, and more of an evangelical based. But so they all do the same work, but they don't overlap, because so this zone is for World Relief. And so anyway, we have a team about, I don't know, I think we have about 12 to 20 people that are working on this. And if you want to find out more about that, you can go to our website, and we do need, so when the refugees come, the family comes, the World Relief provides an apartment, but we're going to provide the furnishings. And so there's like a wish list, or not actually a wish list, it's like things we need. But it's like buy and hold, because we don't know when they're coming, but they might come tomorrow and they might need it. So thanks to Mary out there in New York State, who bought a couch through our website, and I assume it's not in your garage, but somehow someone here will buy it with your donation. And so that's going on, and that was good. So it's kind of timely. Before I forget, I've been meaning to do a shout out. I got a good friend from my stout days named Thomas. He lives in Prescott. So Thomas, I heard you tune in. I saw your dad, who's a deacon in the church, And he said that you tune in for the chat. So hi Thomas, hope you're doing well. I have fond memories of you and your deep knowledge of the liturgy of the church. I hope that's continuing. And then from Brenda, great friend, I heard she always tunes in from Menominee, so that's awesome. Thanks. And so back to Stephanie's presentation. She talked for about a half hour, then she took questions and then continued with some stories. There's a nice story about this group from Karakosh, which is a pretty Catholic area in Iraq, and basically the town was decimated. They made their way to Amman, Jordan, and they kind of found each other, and they gathered, and they could gather for church. And it was a little bit, church would be in Arabic, like at a Catholic church, and but I don't know if Stephanie heard them or she talked to them afterwards. I think it was part of the service. They let the folks from Karakosh, the refugees, form a choir, and they sang a song in their native dialect and language, which I think is Aramaic, which is the language that Jesus spoke and would have sung, you know. And she said it was just like, I don't know what her metaphor was. She's such a good writer, but it just filled everybody's heart with joy. It was like what they saved was this song, and the song they saved joy because they could sing this hymn together, which I could imagine. Can you imagine being in I don't know, any country that nobody knows any English, and which is hard to find out. We're pretty spoiled. A lot of people know English in the world. And then you find some folks from the U.S. speak English, and you find out that they're church people, and they're like, oh, do you know, now thank we all our God, or do you know On Eagle's Wings? Do you know Be Not Afraid? And then to sing it together, and what how that would fortify your heart. So anyway, so there's some things like that. They talked about one very much into their answers. Was it the Yazidis? I forget which group it was, but again, refugees, and they would have this thing where they would remember. One guy would recite his grandfathers, and it wasn't just Grandpa Lou and Grandpa Mark. It was like going back in generations, so like 7 generations, and then like when they might go to back great grandfather or someone else in the crowd, go, oh, he was my great grandfather, And I think maybe that was the catalyst for her phrase, So it's really true in that culture that they all belong to each other, And that's something that she came to conclude about all of us, when we care for each other and we hear each other's stories. That was probably the greatest thing about it is, that people wanted to tell their story, so she could tell the story. So, what was important to them could be important to us and important to other people that hear their stories. Stories live on. You might think that as the holidays approach, tell your family stories, tell your memories. If you're like mine, sometimes the same story gets told, and it's like, yeah, I know that story. And don't roll your eyes. Appreciate it. Appreciate that you know the story and you could tell it yourself. Grounds us. They asked her. Someone said, a refugee family's coming here that St. James is hosting. What would you recommend as far as hospitality for them? And she said, spices. Everybody was surprised. Spices? And I said, yeah, there's nothing like, to the taste of home. And, we have this big store in Altoona that I think has a great international section. So that would be great. So you wouldn't think that maybe right off the bat, spices. And she said, and if you're buying things for people, she said, maybe, don't give them just secondhand stuff you're trying to get rid of. She said, buy them even better than you'd buy for yourself. That's the mark of true hospitality. I thought, well, that's interesting. Buying even better than I would buy for myself. Yeah, it's nice. So anyway, it's a beautiful night. I was so glad to have her with us. She's just a beautiful spirit. I invite you just to even watch a couple minutes so you can hear her voice and sense her presence on our YouTube channel. And this morning I am grateful that I got up early and we could go out for breakfast, and then her friend picked her up and off. She should be in the air now. Her plane was supposed to leave at 1:30. And she couldn't fly into Tel Aviv. That canceled that flight, so she flew into Amman, Jordan. She's going to cross the border into Israel and then the West Bank later. And her her husband's not telling the kids, so the kids can be surprised that she's home early. Can you imagine that beautiful homecoming? So that's good. Anyway, what a joy. What a joy. I'm kind of sad it's over, but I'm glad we pulled it off. And we sold all the books. So, yeah, we're holding a couple for people that couldn't come but didn't make it. If it just sits on my desk for too long, I'll put it up for sale. I think we're okay. Let's see. I wanted to share. I thought he was dead, but he lived to be 96 years old. And this man died. I don't have a picture of him. It's a picture of a boy. It's not the author. But see that? I was just going through the news headlines today on the La Croix newsletter I get from France. And it said, Gustavo Gutierrez, father of liberation theology, dies at 96 years old. So I believe he is from Peru. And I don't know if you heard of liberation theology. I think people sort of made it a buzzword kind of in the U.S. like it was bad or something. But it came under scrutiny because it kind of engaged politics. And so it seeked, I think, to deprivatize religion, but to make religion and the spiritual life something that would include improving the lives of people here on earth. Not just, providing what they need to go to heaven, but providing what they need to live a normal lifespan and, be educated and thrive as a human being made in God's image. It's always made sense to me, but I think it started in Latin America. He called it integral salvation. So there's the salvation of the soul, but there's also the thriving of the human life that we're given now to have and to live. So it's to integrate those two, I think for a long time, like religion, like even I think it got associated with Marxism. So then John Paul II happens to become Pope, right, when Gustavo Gutierrez is writing about this integral salvation, and in a ways it was sort of a contrast to Karl Marx and Lenin and those guys, because they called, I guess it was Marx, he said religion is the opiate of the masses. So people that are poor and miserable, religion is like a drug to give to them, like so they don't, just tell them not to worry about this life, just get them to focus on their sins and fear of hell, and they get to heaven if they just suffer patiently and not, and liberation theology is kind of a reaction against that. So it's actually, ironically, it's a reaction against Marxism, but it would get associated with it because of the social engagement. And so they talk about social sin, not just personal sin, and they ran into a little trouble with the Vatican. The Vatican's like, well, we got to investigate this. Interestingly, the big investigator was a guy named Cardinal Ratzinger, who became Pope Benedict XVI. So to kind of push to the end, they reconciled, and Pope Benedict in 2004 wrote to Gustavo Gutierrez thanking him for his contributions to church life and his theology. But there was this thing, they didn't like the idea of social sin. When Ratzinger was writing and looking at liberation theology, so sin's very personal. It's just things we commit. That's what we're culpable for. It's just our individual conscience and whether we get up to heaven or not. And that's what we're accountable for, not like the sins of the world, And but Gustavo, he sort of boiled it down to how do we tell the poor and suffering masses of the world that God loves them? How do we, when Jesus came to earth, how did he tell us that God loves us? He did, but he also joined our suffering. He even died on a cross, And so for non-liberation theologians, it's like this cross is kind of like, yeah, see, Jesus suffered, you suffered, he rose from the dead. After you die, you'll rise from the dead too. So just know he's with you. But they said, Jesus joined our suffering, so we might, find a way out. So rather than just like, oh, Jesus died on a cross, so I'll accept my cross and just live a miserable life. It's more like, wow, Jesus died on a cross, the Son of God. We should have compassion for that. And just as we have compassion for Jesus on the cross, we should have compassion for others on their crosses who live just miserable lives, that they die too young before their time because of their extreme poverty and misery they live with, you know. So anyway, I think it was a great contribution to church life to try to say, you know, this life matters too. It's a great gift. It's not just about the next life. It's both. That's why they call it integral salvation. We worry about what happens, obviously, the eternity and the kind of end of days and what lasts forever. We're all citizens of heaven. But we got a lot of commands that Jesus taught us to love one another. Blessed are the poor, you know. Good Samaritan. You know, if people are hurting, who's my neighbor? Who do I got to help? Anybody that's hurting, right? So, I don't know. It sounds good to me. But it's harder. I think it's harder. You know, so like a group like Jonah here in Eau Claire, you know, they engage. They say, well, how come we make life better for people? Let's work on availability of housing. Let's look at situations when someone gets released from jail or prison. How do they integrate? Is there something we can do in society to help them not go back, but we can make it a soft landing for them when they come back to society? You know, those kind of issues, that they matter. They're not just economic issues, because they affect the good of the human person, you know, and that's what we're called to do, to help each other out and to live full lives as we can here, and wait for heaven as a great gift from God. So anyway, he died, and it just reminded me of all this liberation theology that I studied for a while way back when. I hope I summarized it okay. But it's basically, you know, how do we say to the poor, God loves you? It's just like, you know, it helps if you're kind of on their side and you're trying to alleviate their suffering, right? I think. So, and that this life matters, and how we treat each other. It's part of saving our souls too. Yeah. So, let's see if I missed any. I wrote it down, a few things, but okay, well, that's good. Boy, only 27 minutes and 30 seconds. I think I'll finish early. Is that good? So let's pray. Loving God, we thank you for today. We thank you for the changing of seasons, for these beautiful trees, for the life that they once had, giving oxygen to the earth with their green leaves, and now it's time for them to rest. There's a season for everything. Help us find our season in life. Help us embrace the call that you give us each day to serve one another. That those who are strong might ponder how they can help the weak. And those who are weak might have the grace even to ask for help.
And the kind of employee we should do that to. I want to make sure people are doing good work and are shaming. Well, guess what? The shaming people know how to write something down.
I'm not sure what that is.
The shaming people are going to sit there and...
Wow, there's something unhappy going on. Some complaint or injustice. So anyway, I'm trying to talk over it. I think they're in good, clean language, but help us, Lord, in our journey through life. Help us find those opportunities to serve. Help us find opportunities to make you smile by how we live our lives. Bless Stephanie as she returns to Bethlehem. Bring peace to her land. Help her family thrive and all those she touches with her lives. All the refugees in the world. Give them a sense of hope. Help us be a source of hope for others. God bless you all.